Welcome everyone to another Empires and Puzzles Books interview video. I'm pretty excited to be interviewing OLO today. OLO has been a longtime commenter and viewer on the channel, and I've gotten to know a bit more about OLO's play style in the last few weeks as we were leading up to this interview. So welcome, OLO.
Very good pleasure to be here. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Yeah, so this is going to be great. OLO contacted me after I did the interview with Dee, who is the free-to-play player. And Olo, where are you at with your spend? You're not entirely free-to-play, but pretty darn close.
Yeah, so it's pretty much bang on 100 US bucks in the lifetime I've been playing the game, which is July 2017.
So soon after the game came out, and in just about 4 years now, 100 bucks US, so less than 25 US. I assume some of that was spent on the extra builder, the VIP.
I think there was 2 VIPs which came on special at one point, and I did that. Probably most of that's actually been on Path of Valor. So yeah, in the first 2.5, 3 years, I had $15 spend.
Nice. It is so remarkable to me. That is excellent. So, and I guess we should thank you also for accommodating the hour. OLO is actually in Auckland, New Zealand. So we are literally at opposite ends of the globe at this point. So it's going on 8 a.m. for me and approaching midnight for you.
That's right. I'm not actually in Auckland. I'm just on Auckland time.
Okay.
New Zealand covers a couple of time zones. So just wanted to make sure you didn't get the wrong one there.
All right, perfect. So again, bringing the world together through phone games and interviews on YouTube. Where were we? I don't even remember how life existed before the internet sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic to be able to do this, and it's quite an honour with some of your previous interviewees, just some absolute legends of the game to you've had on here. So absolutely.
Sure, appreciate that. Yeah, the goal of this is to talk to a variety of players. It originally started out with just talking to the top of the top, but as I've been kind of opening the door to talking to other players, there's actually some other stories out there that are a lot more interesting in a lot of ways. So as opposed to other players that I've talked to about how to master the challenge events and the ninja towers and smack around the big titans, the thing that's really intriguing to me about your story is your ridiculous win rate in wars. So I'm guessing by the information you shared, war is really your thing?
Yeah, 100%. War, and maybe distant fourth place would be raid tournaments. Quite enjoy those as well.
Yeah, the raid tournaments, I like that they change things up. I find them entertaining, but from a competitive standpoint, I find them frustrating with how they do the points and the matchmaking for those. I lost the raid tournaments lost their luster to me last year when I had a perfect week with 3 stars and wasn't even in the top 10. I had 25 wins and A defense, and I was screwed on that challenge points that they give you with how aggressive or how challenging it is the person you were attacking.
Mm-hmm.
So since I had maxed troops and maxed emblems on all my 3s, I got very little challenge points. So it kind of dissuaded me from overly investing in 3s and 4s and competing on that level. So I can understand why you're saying that's a distant fourth. But so that means war is your 1, 2, and 3, your faves.
Yeah, but the raid tournaments, the great thing about it is the constraints that it places on you. And like with that 5th mythic titan, I forget what color it was, but the one where you couldn't give it defense down.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I enjoyed that the most because it messed with your head so much, and you had to completely think about your heroes again. What do I need here? What's the best combination that I actually have?
All right, well, I need to congratulate you. You're the first player I've talked to that enjoyed that one. That Mythic Titan was awful for those of us who've set up teams specifically to slay Titans with capitalizing on multiple defense downs. Which again, it plays into your roster, right? So as we look here, you have a total of 4 elemental defense down heroes. I assume that's not changed since you sent me this graphic?
No, and 2 of them in the same color as well. So don't have great coverage across the elemental defense down, but it is hugely important.
Sure. Now, do you have the other important Titan heroes like Mickey or Tarlac, Ranveer,
I
Wukong,
do have
or
Ranveer, so I've got him at 370, and that seems to be adequate. I'm not sure I'll give him the darts to take him up to the max.
yeah, what size Titans are you guys slaying?
We are killing pretty much all the 10-star Titans that come to us, and it's usually the 11s that we let go.
Okay. Yeah, you'll be fine with Ranveer at 370. I had Ranveer and Mickey and Tarlac at 370 for a long time with killing 14 stars every day. The only reason I took any of them to 480, and I've took them all to 480 at this point, and that was only because I was going for Titan records. So I try to keep some data on that. And if I hadn't chased the overall record, which you have to have ice to do, or at least, well, actually we still need ice to do the overall record. Mickey would have stayed at 370 forever. I am having the benefit now, Mickey, for the rush events.
Oh, for rush wars.
Yeah.
And why did Mickey get 5 turns now of silence? I can't believe that one.
Hey,
they buffed Mickey.
I don't understand how they keep buffing Kagan. He was the hardest hitting hero in the game without a stipulation. So like Cobalt hit harder, but you need to have a second or third charge. Costume Aslar hits harder, but you have to have the enemy already half dead. Kagan just is a beast. He hits hard, and they've buffed him twice since then. So it's like, fine by me. I use him in events all the time.
Yeah, I do actually have a max Kagan. I think he was my first fire. So second fire to get maxed.
So I'm seeing your highest Titan damage at just about 150k. I'm assuming that was with Ranveer's assistance.
Yeah, he's in pretty much. Yeah, he is in all my Titan teams. I actually forget which. That would have been against a green nature Titan, since I have costume Marjana as well. So that's definitely my strongest color.
All right, well, let's jump in and talk about the meat of what this conversation is going to be about, and it's this disgusting war total of yours. So we're seeing across wars and types that you're well into the 80% win rate, and that is pretty remarkable. So I do have one question before we jump in. I want to ask you about your stats, because I see for the wars that you list your victories and your defeats. I did not see a column for cleans. Is your relationship with your alliance such that you can take one-shot attempts on each flag, or are you doing cleans in there and not counting them?
There's been, I think, so in something like 400 war hits, 2 cleans in that time. So yeah. Best value for the alliance is me to try and take the one shots.
Nice. That's a good place to be. As I've gotten to the top 50 alliances, I understand our personal responsibility for cleaning our own messes, but it's like I get frustrated because if you have a lapse, then you're burning another one-shot attempt. But when you have an alliance of people who are all capable of one-shotting on each flag, somebody's got to do the clean. So. We all have chores to do, clean up the house, I guess.
Exactly. It seems like it puts the incentive in the right place.
So talk to me a little bit about this graphic I'm looking at that describes war cycles. I was not understanding what you meant by war cycles. So I'm seeing 7 war cycles with so many victories and defeat in each cycle. What are you counting as a cycle?
10 wars. So obviously we have 5 war types, and we have 2 a week. So 1 war cycle is that 5 times 2, giving it 10. I've excluded the very first week was, we had 1 week of Undead Horde, and then 1 war of Undead Horde, and then we went into a full war cycle.
All right, excellent. And were you keeping these stats when we were still doing the awful healing aid?
No. A lot of that's been compiled retrospectively, because I have I keep nearly all of, I missed about 6 or 7 recordings, but I have nearly all my war hits for that period on my YouTube channel.
So seeing your win percentage, now I realize you've had a few wars since you sent me this graphic, but the last graphic at the end of war, well, you were in the middle of war cycle 7, you were at a 91% one-shot rate, and cycle 5, which is obviously completed, you were at a 95%. So it seems like your percentage is actually going up with each cycle.
I finished cycle 7 at 85%, so that definitely came down, and that's my long-term average across those 7 cycles is 85%. But it does seem to be an upward trend. The first 2 were notably worse. I think the biggest change there has been that was about the time I got costumes for Tibertus and Rigard. Goodness me, it took a long time to get Rigard's costume, and that made quite a difference.
I'm sure. So do you know offhand what has been your longest win streak, one-shot streak?
Yeah, it's 38, and that happened in that war cycle where it was 91%, did you say?
95.
95%.
Yeah. 34?
38.
38. I think it might have been, I think I might be thinking about Mr. Spock. I think he had a 34 war win streak. Mine, go ahead.
That's right, it's about 34. I think it might have been 35, not quite sure.
Yeah, I struggle. Since I've been monitoring my win streak rate, I can't get past 11. But when you're facing Barras and other top 50 alliances every freaking week, twice a week, it gets exhausting sometimes. So that brings me to the question that I'm sure viewers are going to ask. How do you select your war targets? I know I feel bad for Mr. Spock. Sometimes he gets criticized. Well, he didn't hit the hardest person. He's like, well, I'm there and we need to flip the board. So you need to flip who's there. So let's put to bed any concern about how you're selecting your war hits. Can you talk a little bit about how you select targets?
Yep. So, I mean, how Mr. Spock's discussed it in the past actually is sort of my approach for how the team needs to work. But whereas Mr. Spock wouldn't do typically any hits in the first half of the war, when you're farming some teams, on the midweek wars, I need to burn at least 2, if not 3 flags in the first 12 hours, or I'm just going to run out of time, just in terms of the logistics.
Sure.
On that weeknight one, whereas in the weekend wars, I'm there trying to take out the hardest targets that I think I can. Mm-hmm. And that's helping to flip the board, because that's usually at about sort of hour 16 or 17.
All right, so let's talk about the range of the opponents you're hitting, because that's another thing that's interesting. Is you also document, excuse me, the strength. So as of the data that you supplied, your enemy average team power is over 4,400, and your average attack team is around 4,000. So you're typically running a 400-point deficit in team power.
Yeah. So as I say, with that midweek war, usually the first 2 or 3 flags are a bit less than that, more like 250 to 300, and then it gets a bit bigger on some of the other hits. With the last hits on the midweek war, though, I'm usually closing out the war, so that can vary quite a lot. Just depends on what the team needs. Sometimes you just need to go for the easiest targets and close it out. Sometimes it doesn't matter, and you can just choose whoever you like. And sometimes you just need to go for the highest points, whoever that might be. Okay,
I'm going to back up a little bit. You mentioned the team, and I was like, which alliance are you in? So you're in Oasis of Shiloh Desert. Do you have a leadership role in the alliance?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm the leader.
Okay. And I forgot to ask you at the start of the video, what's the history behind OLO? Where does your screen name come from?
Well, in New Zealand, we have a national religion called rugby union. It's a sport that's not all that widely played, but hugely important to New Zealanders. Probably becoming less so. But anyway, as I was in college at the time, sorry, that's US high school age, mm-hmm. I got the nickname of OLO, and there was a All Blacks front rower. Sorry, All Blacks is the New Zealand rugby team.
Okay.
So he was basically playing the highest level of rugby. His name was OLO Brown.
Nice.
And I ran about as fast as a front row, which is not very fast, hence the nickname.
All right. All right. Thanks for putting that in perspective. So does your alliance, are you hemisphere based or are you all over the world?
Mostly US. So myself in New Zealand, we've got one in Singapore, one Chilean, I believe, definitely South America. And I think that's it for outside of North America.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump back into, we interrupted our own conversation here about war. I do want to get in and talk about your war teams. Now, I found this interesting. Usually when I talk and interview people about their war teams, they send me the full team, but you actually sent me your core threes. So, and what I gather from you is that you're not necessarily consistently 3-2. Sometimes you're 3-1-1. So you just built a core and then you add heroes on, I presume, based on what you're seeing in the team you're attacking.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm trying to save my the strong color combinations for when the toughest enemies come up, and trying to build good synergy within a triple. So instead of in the same way that you've discussed your mono teams and trying to get mana efficiency and having good synergy amongst those heroes, it's the same thing and trying to do that with a 3.
All right, well, let's go in and deconstruct your teams here and figure out, you can educate us a little bit on your team synergies here. So the first one I'm looking at is the Liana Buddy Melindor team, Costume Melindor.
Yeah, so probably that one and the Dark team, reasonably similar in that they've all those threes have got one healer involved, right? So that's the first thing to note. And I'm typically running at least 2 healers in every war team, and very often when I'm doing a 3-1-1, that'll be 3 healers, or at least 2 healers and a more of a support hero. So that's sort of a mid-level team for me, that Buddy Liana combo. We can get the defense down and follow that up with a good smack from Liana. So I've got level 23 mana troop in fire, nature, and ice. And so Buddy I can get to go off in 9 tiles. So that's the mana efficiency there with that 3. And so it's quite good if you've got, say, a tank who's going to give you defense down. Melindor can take care of that. And that's something I quite like about all those 4-star healers, or the average speed costume ones. They've got some good buffs and good skills, and if you can match that up against the enemy, you can really take advantage of that.
Sure. And now Melindor will dispel buffs whether he's wearing the costume or not. You chose the costume, which is going to be giving the healing over time. When you pair this team up, I assume you use another healer that does the instant heal, or do you just prefer your healing over time?
It depends. So you take the War Equalizer format. So pretty much every other format it will always be Costume Melindor, and sometimes in the War Equalizer I'll use regular Melindor.
Sure.
I think it is generally a stronger combination to have one heal over time and one instant heal. So that's my general preference, but that's not. It's often not how it works out.
Yeah, it's interesting how my feeling on war and raid teams has matured. A year plus ago, I was often attacking without a healer at all because, full mono, find my 9 tiles and just blow everything up. Yeah. And now, actually, through doing these interviews and talking to players and getting different perspectives on things, plus we've had a change in the meta in the last year where people are using less healers on defense. So there's this war of attrition that has an advantage to the attacker. If you can keep your folks alive, you're just whittling them down. So since the Jabberjay, and I know you mentioned since the Jabberjay interview, you went from 3-2 to practicing with 3-1-1. I am slowly moving over to 3-1-1 with the 3 actually being my mini attack team, and then using healers of two healers of different colors. And I've been having a lot of success with that. So that's actually combining the Jabberjay interview with the interview with Arab 4T, and he was talking about taking the double healers. Yeah. And that has been interesting to me. It's definitely a different type of fighting than I'm used to. But it's fun, you know, you've been doing mono for 2+ years. It's interesting to at least start trying to explore other aspects of the game. I'm just frustrated that Eric got me spending so many mats on healers. So the second nature team, you have a second Melindor and a Catalan with costume and Horgle. Now this is the team that you had claimed has a ridiculously high win rate.
Yeah, but then that's because I only take it in against specific enemies with a specific weakness.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So while that Catalan has costume, I will typically take her in without the costume, take regular Catalan in. But what I'm looking for with an opponent there is someone with either little healing or no healing. So someone like Teluria would count as being little healing. And either no cleansing or maybe an average or slow speed cleanser on the wing where it's not going to be so consequential. So essentially it's got defense up in the form of Melindor's shields and then Catalan's buff, so that can reduce an awful lot of the incoming damage. So I can get 9 green tiles, and that will give me that initial save, and then another green match will give me costume Horgle, and then that buys me 6 turns of negative 54 attack, and it's usually over at that point. Does not matter at that point. They can throw everything they like at you, and hence also why I don't take costume Catalan in that context, because all I'm trying to do is reduce the size of each hit. Having a big snipe get through on the dodge is just contrary to what that team's trying to achieve. It just grinds them down, and I think it's lost twice.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, in the land of places that I see you doing unique things is using Horgle. You know, he is I always find it interesting the heroes that get shunned in the community and people kind of turn their nose. You know, I've seen some videos of a player who's absolutely passionate about Nor and uses Nor in some unique ways and gets some serious wins from wearing people down with the built up of the specific minions that come from Nor. So I appreciate that you're exploring what I would call non-traditional heroes as far as the ones that people focus on.
Yep.
So I actually just had, and I guess you'll appreciate this, literally just this morning, I was having a Facebook conversation with a player that was excited about Yunin. They just pulled Yunin in the Springvale event. I said I would level Horgle before Yunin, just because for a slow hero that applies damage over time that can be cleansed. Like that to me is a long wait for something that can just go away, as opposed to Horgle that's just going to hit very hard when he does go off.
Yeah, and even in the rush format, that damage over time is a bit slow. I mean, it's still good, but whereas Horgle in those rush formats, you know, 6 turns of negative 54, it's usually over. Unless they've got someone who can cleanse or attack buff, there's no coming back from that in rush.
So this next team is just mean looking. To look at 2 Junes maxed with costumes, they're pretty aggressive looking. And then you got Vivica there. Now you're in the same land I am. You have regular Vivica. You don't have the dirty Vivica with the defense down.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's with the power snipes.
Oh, well, it's the weakness of Holy, isn't it? Hardly any defense down. So who is there? There's Rabbit and costume Vivica. So those are your only options for defense down and Holy. And then they're a bit weak. I mean, who have they got for attack up? No one? I can't think of any. So typically that's what I'm looking for in one of those 3s. And Dark is kind of the best in this, because you get attack up and rigor, defense down with the Bertus, and a great big whack with Sartana.
Leonidas costume gives attack down for the enemy. And Ranveer and Gazelle give the big boost for attack. Drake Fong just does the 5%, but that's just for the elemental link. But yeah, you're right on the weaknesses of Holy, and if you don't have costume Leonidas, which I do not,
Me either. So I'm
I
just
have.
I'm hanging out. I've
Yep.
saved up 70 something keys,
Now
and
white.
waiting for that costume to come up, and then I'll spend all the keys on that. Try and get him.
Yeah, I'm anxiously awaiting July. Well, it looks like it'll have 2 costume events, so hopefully he's featured in one. And then White Rabbit, who I have, and I was excited when I got White Rabbit, but the more I use him, the more I'm let down that he's just defense downing 1 hero.
Mm.
And in
Yeah, it's a bit like at the moment I could be taking Jackal, and it's obviously very squishy, but it's the same kind of thing. You can take out one, but it's not as powerful as some other combinations.
Sure. And then I sometimes think Small Giant has a really sick sense of humor, because then they give us this magical holy hero in Mist, like the only defense down for specials, but you can't really combine her very well, again, unless you happen to have costume Leonidas. But so with this team, you're just basically looking at the healing and smacking people around with the snipers.
Yeah, so the thing I do like about this though is that not many of my teams have lots of 5 stars in them. So that's 3 5 stars. So I'll often take that when you've got a powerful sniper as the tank, because they can take a big hit, and you need someone faster in the other healing combination, because slow Vivica is definitely one of the weaknesses of that. It takes quite a while to get her going, so you want someone else in a different colour to be able to take the load.
Sure.
It pairs really well with, say, a Bold Tusk to get the attack up, and then maybe someone like Gormek to get the defence down. So the timing can be a bit trickier that way, but you can still get some synergy between the 2 colours.
Yeah, the joys of getting your heroes fired up, but your defense down or attack up is not ready to go yet.
Yeah, well, usually the 2 Junes is more than enough for one target, but Gormek then gives you some more options where you can you've got enough damage on some that maybe you can take out 2, have a June on each, and sometimes 1 June's enough to finish off the tank. You've probably got some tile damage if you've managed to charge up some heroes by that point.
All right, so your next team up is the Dark team with Tibertus and Sartana, and then no surprise, Costume Regard. I am really starting to think I'm the only player in the game that does not have 20 emblems on a Costume Regard. I just I've never relied on him, but everybody is so passionate about their Costume Regards.
Yeah, I think it did makes life a lot easier, because there's so many status ailments coming at you. For a very, very long time, I'm using Regard, and Tibertus was one of my common 2s, and they both needed 10 tiles. It only changes the way that you're trying to play the board. You're almost never taking a 3 match because you want to try and bring some other tiles in close. It's a bit like playing the rush format and the 3 and 4 star raid tournaments, where if you can get that Dragon Bomb, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have Sartana's costume.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. That Dark team is my favourite of the lot, really, because it's got everything. It's got the attack up. It's got the cleanse as well, in case there's been some ailment thrown on you, defense down from Tibertus, and a nice big healthy smack from Sartana. So to me, that's sort of the model for having a good synergy there. They're all going off in 9 tiles. It works really nicely.
And they're all very solid. They can take a hit. I was just going to say, you have costume Sartana, and she, unlike other season 1 snipers like Magni, who is a glass cannon, and if you blow on Magni too hard, he dies. Sartana is really beefy. She can take some damage.
Yeah, Marjana's got pretty good defensive stats as well, but then she was also a bit lacking in the offense department. So, but yeah, they're both pretty sturdy.
Yeah, Sartana is one of the few snipers that I'm still using. I've really moved away in the last few months from concentrating on snipers, but I do still find value in her. All right, so I think people will find this interesting. Your next team has a third June on it. You have 3 Junes maxed. And
yes, I do.
and
That's the secondary holy team. Yeah, it doesn't slightly out of favour with me actually at the moment. It's had a few losses, so not that happy with the performance. It's got the same problem with the primary team where you're really only powerful against one target. So yes, you've got sort of a guaranteed elimination there with Jackal followed up by June, but that's still leaving a lot of firepower on the enemy team, and it's not as though it's coming with anything extra. Like if you're attacking with someone like Richard, where you're getting attacked down, and so you'll at least be buying yourself usually a bit more time. With those holy teams, usually the enemy team is still very capable of giving you a good smack back.
Now, have you had issues with Lady Woolerton with her negative effect?
Not so much. Yeah, and it is very nice having the fast speed heal. So I'm more likely to take that against a Telluria team. Because that fast speed heal, you've got 6 matches already, and then you get given the mana down, you can still get your healer off with that 3rd match.
All right, now this next team, I'm interested to talk to you about it, and I'm being selfish here just because I never took Izrod past 370. I didn't see value in Izrod when he first came out. I got him that first weekend, got him up to 370, and was sort of meh on him. But now with the new raid formations, he's one of those heroes that people are putting in a power spot in the back, so that he's given the reflect to everybody. So you have Bold Tusk on there with Gravemaker and Izrod on your attack team. So let's talk about this group.
You still there, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm here. Are you there? All right, welcome back everyone from that slight technical interruption. The power of technology until it fails. So we had a slight interruption there, but we were just about to talk about your Bold Tusk Gravemaker Izrod team. And I'm really curious about how this is working for you. It's an interesting chemistry, in my opinion. So I'm curious to hear your insights on how you're utilizing these 3 together.
Yeah, I'm not super enthusiastic about this one. So Isrod's the only. Actually, sorry, I've got 2 legendaries who aren't season 1 or heroes of the month. Isrod being one of them, and Inari being the other. Inari still sitting at 1/1. So we still come up against a lot of green tanks, so it was still a reasonably easy decision to max Isrod. But yeah, he has been a bit underwhelming, and that the counter attack where you have to get smacked in order to do damage to them, it's pretty tough to make it work. So I do bring a lot of healing, so that's one way that you can try and counter it, but the ways that you end up countering it end up reducing the amount of damage. So, and Isrod himself, a paladin, so he puts his paladin up, takes less damage, deals less back.
Yep.
That's not a particularly nice synergy just with his own competencies. He would have probably been better off with 100 less on the defense and 200 more on the HP.
Like Alina.
That way. Yeah, and that way he'd actually, he might stick around about the same, but he'll actually deal an awful lot more back to the enemy. So mixed results. Mostly he's just been useful as a hit 3, frankly.
Right.
There have been, I think, probably 2 decent successes I can think of with Isrod. So yes, I tend to be looking for the hit all heroes because it's just not consistent enough with the hit 3 or the hit, or let alone a sniper. Decent chance that they won't hit you if indeed you've got your counter attack up at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the mana gain is not brilliant. It's there. So minions is a nice synergy. So if you're having a bit of a slow ball and they've already got quite a few minions out, then if that nibbles away at you, you can earn a bit of extra mana that way.
All right. So what I was about to say, is that I feel like Small Giant used to be very smart, and they seem to be getting dumber in some ways. Like when they built the original season 1 heroes, they did a very smart thing with giving Alina very low defense, higher HP, because she was a repost reflect hero. So you want that damage number so you can reflect it back. So yeah, it's nonsensical to make somebody who reflects or repost a paladin. And I've noticed like they'll make minion summoning heroes druid, which as a druid they're already going to summon a minion. So they do some of these nonsensical things. I think they've made the game so complex now with emblems that like they gotta, like there's a check that's not happening when they're formulating some of these new heroes.
Yeah, well, there's just so many moving parts these days that it's basically impossible for a human to try and get that balance right.
Yep. It's viewers will sometimes comment on my thing, and they're like, why don't you do X, Y, Z or use X, Y, Z? I'm like, I don't know, because there's like 200 5-star heroes and I don't remember everything that they all do anymore, much less the 4s and 3s. And the amount of content they've pushed out now, I feel like I can't even keep up with the 3s and 4s. I used to be really proud of my knowledge of especially the 3 stars, but it's like there's so few opportunities to use them. And then it's like you got to relearn them every time a 3-star event comes around.
Yeah.
So the next team I definitely have questions for you. This is your second Bold Tusk with the double Marjanas.
Yeah, I like that one. That's got a great synergy to it. So obviously they're all going off within 9 tiles. You've got attack up, and since I've got the costumes, I'll usually have, it depends who I'm going up against, but usually one, the lesser Marjana with the costume, and the big Marjana in terms of emblems with just regular Marjana. So typically I'll take that combination when I've got someone really beefy who just has to die. So Heimdall's a good example. Get a slow board against him. He can be really tough to take out, and they work really nicely on that. Elfreich could be another one. So one of those threats that you just can't leave on the board. So when you've just got to get rid of one enemy, that's one of the teams that I'll take. And that is actually one of the teams where I've experimented a lot more with 3-1-1 and with considerable success. So one of the things I sort of took out of the Jabba J interview was, maybe these words weren't used, but minimum sufficient offensive power. So you need just enough offense to be able to kill them, and anything less than that is you're wasting your time. But if you can reckon you can crack it, so you've got enough attacking power, then dedicate the rest of the team to support. Not fully defensive. He likes a bit of a mix of those heroes who do a bit of offense, a bit of defense. But yeah, 3-1-1 has worked well there because they just have that instant killing power. If I've got them charged, that usually means there's enough damage on the tank that maybe the flank hit with costume Marjana might be enough to finish them off. So you can have 2 dead in pretty quick order.
All right, so you actually already answered my question I was going to have about this team, because I noticed you're using costume Marjana followed by regular Marjana, and that's for that snipe to just take out the one concerning target. A lot of folks that I've seen using double Marjanas are using 2 costumes for the hit 3 and then the follow up with the hit 3. But that makes sense with what you're doing there.
Yeah, and I do sometimes take the double costumes if there's not that same looming threat, but usually there's enough targets in a war that there's you want to be trying to take out some of these harder ones, and given the number of green tanks that we're still coming up against, I don't waste a strong team like that on a middling enemy.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your troop build. So it looks like you have a solid group of 23s manas in each group, and an 11, and it looks like you're working on your second set of 11s. Do you want to talk about your, actually I guess the holy and the darks are at 20. They didn't get to 23 yet.
That's right, yeah. So in fire, nature and ice, I've got 23, 11, 11 all mana. So one of the things I was incredibly fortunate with was that the first four-star troops I got given 4 out of 5 were mana troops, because I had no idea at the time what the significance was.
Yeah, none of us did. So you lucked out that you happened to work on mana. Congrats.
Yeah. So it is just luck of the draw. So 4 out of 5, the first 4 star troops I started working on were mana troops. And in Dark, I've got a level 20 crit troop, which tells you how far I got with that before I realised, these mana troops are pretty special. But the level 20 crit still gets used, so Sartana gets that. She's going to go off in 9 tiles anyway. That's still a pretty good troop for her.
Sure, makes sense.
And I stopped on the holies. So whereas in most colours, I just kept on working on the main troop to get up to 23 before I started leveling up anything else. But in holy, I've just stopped because there's no average speed holy hero that I'm using regularly in my roster. So there's just not that much advantage to taking it from 20 to 23. I'm sure I will get there eventually. And I know you're in the same situation of you're wondering what to do with Inari. And I'm kind of in the same situation. I've got a teammate who says, no, Inari's pretty good. I just don't see it reading the card, and I've never really come across it in any other YouTubers that I haven't really seen a successful use case.
Yeah, I had an alliance mate in my previous line that was passionate about Inari on offense, and there's at least one 7-day family member that is hugely passionate on Inari, and they had me almost convinced to max her, and then I just started thinking about the average speed versus fast, and that I talked myself out of it. So I think those darts were better spent on Sif, and I've been getting good results with her, especially with all these area hitters out there that can eliminate themselves.
It's been quite noticeable watching some of your videos. Yeah, Sif's featuring a lot more and doing very well.
Thank you for that. So we're going to switch gears from war, and we got to talk about one of the things you sent me. Again, is probably one of the more ridiculous things I've seen, and it is this 40-minute legendary level 15 fight. Did you stop for coffee in the middle and go get something to eat, or was this an all-out 40-minute fight?
That was non-stop, 40 minutes. Yeah. Has that screenshot got the team in it as well?
Yeah, that was Sabina, Tibertus, Richard, Horgel, and June.
Yeah. Horgel's not a good choice there. But I ended up burning pretty much all my items, just about all my items, trying to kill Boss Wolf first, and just got nowhere. And eventually did enough tile damage on Puss that I was able to recharge June about 3 times and just continually snipe him, open up a ghosting lane, and eventually, that's right. And then I thought, I'll go back to Boss Wolf. No, don't do that. So I must have spent another 5+ minutes trying to kill Boss Wolf. And then realised, okay, this isn't working. And then worked on who was it, the other Red Hood, and finally knocked her off.
All right, so just a little tip. If you want to be competitive in the challenge events, you don't want to spend 40 minutes on all of Legendary. So clearly not going for top score here.
Yeah, no, I was still pretty happy with the completion. But yeah, I had to laugh at myself after that one. I did have, when I posted that in our team Discord, someone else posted one where it was his 3rd time taking it on, and he did say that there was breaks. He never said how long, but it was at 90 minutes. So he was just having an awful lot of trouble finishing this team off. It had Queen of Hearts in it, and I think there might have been some healing there as well.
All right, just for the viewers out there, so you know, if you wait in a challenge events, you don't get the little clock that increases damage like you do in a war or raid. Like, you got to keep going. That just seems brutal.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't have Proteus, which is very frustrating because he looks super effective, and just for completion on those events, hitting 3, stopping the mana,
Yep.
just absolutely brilliant.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so looking at your inventory here, you have one of the larger piles of 4-star ascension materials I've seen. Is that due to a lack of fives, or are you just that picky on who you're giving them to?
I'd say it's a lack of fives. I've got a lot of season 1 duplicates. There's actually still quite a few season 1s that I'm missing, and top of that list is Magni. So I would very much like to get a Magni
Oh
in
yeah,
the team.
Magni's great.
Yeah, and because I've got Glenda and I've got 2 Richards maxed, so they can have a 23. Magni can fire on an 11. So I think that could be quite a good synergy, but he has continued to elude me.
Do you
And
run TC20?
I run 2 TC20s, and have been doing so for ages and ages, and still no Magni.
Wow.
4 Quintuses, much to my chagrin. I think I played the first, I don't know, 2.5 years at least, with no other legendary dark than Quintus.
Wow.
So I have a special place of loathing in my heart for Quintus. And even he does actually now get a run in Rush. But I can't even usually find a spot for him on my attack teams. But he is there in my defense lineup.
Wow. Yeah, Quintus was actually the very first 5-star hero I ever pulled, and I have yet to take him to 480.
Wise choice, I think. I don't really have anything polite to say about the guy. Yeah, so a lot of those war attack teams you'll see there's, and this is what's lacking in my ice teams. You didn't see an ice combination in there because I don't have an ice 3 that I really like, because I can't get that mana efficiency, because if I pair Grim with Glenda or Richard, well, one of them can't be going off in 9 tiles, and it
Right.
makes all the difference.
Sure thing.
And Quintus he's in this place of, okay, hit all, but you're annoying the enemy. You're not killing them. You've got to have some dead enemies, or they're just going to keep coming at you.
Yeah. So in the land of saying something positive about Quintus, I always liked his card. Like, I like his artwork and his special. Like, he's a cool hero. He just is not effective.
Yeah, no, I even just the look of him now, the art probably is fine, but I just have such so many years of wishing for a different legendary. But finally, the floodbanks did open. I pulled a Sartana out of TC20. In fact, that was a fairly ridiculous pull out of my 2 TC20s. I had 3 consecutive legendaries out of TC20.
Wow.
Justice, Horgle, and Sartana. I was more excited about Sartana.
Now, are you?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you running Hero Academy 10?
I've only actually just finished building the 10th level, but I don't have enough food storage to be able to max the research yet. So,
Ouch. Yeah.
I haven't done the math, but it looks like it's going to be at least 50 days of leveling up food storage. I've got 10 levels, and I assume they've set it so you need to have completely maxed food storage in order to do the research at Hero Academy 10.
Yeah. Small Giant is still good at figuring out the math to screw us on time.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of the things that has been a bit different for me is you have to have a lot of patience. You saw that in your interview with Dee, and working with the constraints. So time is one thing that I tend not to use the builder VIP option, and when the more exciting thing out of the VIP builder isn't their second builder, it's the gems and the tickets that come with it.
Yep. And daily emblem.
Yep.
So as a cheap to play player, I'm really curious about your feelings about some of the recent changes with the game, specifically like the limit breakers now and the flood of new heroes that have come out in the last 3 to 6 months and seem to be coming out in the rest of this year. How are you feeling about the direction the game is going?
The pace of change is somewhat alarming. So you mentioned before about trying to keep up with all the specials and the potential synergies and combinations. It's definitely getting beyond that point where a human can keep all of that meaningfully in their head. So that's certainly one challenge, but I guess I'm a bit more sanguine about the power creep issue. Certainly I don't want to see it being rapid, but if you're expecting a game where there's no power creep, you're in for disappointment. It's just baked into the model, and you just need, if you're going to play the game, you just need to accept that there is going to be power creep, and especially if you're going to be free to play or cheap to play, you need to find things in the game that still work at your level. So the quality of war matchmaking is actually one of the more important issues to me, and I suppose teams at about our level. So it is really quite important to have that even competition, because there's not. It's I do hear some folks in various YouTube comments and sometimes in the videos themselves talking about how free to play and cheap to play are going to be left behind with all this new content, and it is going to accelerate it. But the bottom line is that we are left behind, and that's okay in my book. But it is really important that things like the raid tournaments and the war matchmaking is effective. Otherwise, it can get really disheartening.
Sure.
I know there was a period a while back where the war matchmaking seemed to be really wild, and you'd get new teams formed, new relatively powerful to us teams, and it seemed like, I don't know, every fourth match you'd be coming up against one of these newly formed teams, and the matchmaking just was doing a terrible job, but finding them a quality opposition, you get thumped by 1,500 points.
Right.
And no one has any fun. You lose the occasional member because they get just absolutely frustrated with the game. So that's one aspect, I think, of the it's one of the real challenges they have to try and balance the game, is to try and make sure that there are places where everyone can reasonably compete at an equal sort of a level.
Agreed. It'll be interesting to see if there's anything done to make the game more attractive to that mid-level player or the cheaper free-to-play players. They do things like release Path of Valor, which is kind of open to everybody, and then they make it harder, and then it's a little harder for everybody. And I don't know how they find that balance to keep attracting. I'm concerned that they're not attracting new players, and I don't know. I just recently put that video out with where is the member base, and I just don't know that you can rely on the top spenders forever to keep the game going. And this flood of new content, I obviously am in an alliance where people spend heavily, and I think there is a lot of displeasure in just the comment I was reading the other day was that, a year ago there'd be 2 or maybe 3 summons windows a month that could entice you, and now there's 2 summons windows each week. It's like you have one at the beginning of the week and another one at the end of the week, and it's like you just can't catch your breath. Yeah,
that video of yours definitely put all this development in a potentially new light. If it is the case that the player base has shrunk as much as it has, and then taking the interview results from the Small Giant staff that came on the forum, there's clearly that's their focus, is new content, and that's understandable enough in the sense of that's what gets them the money, but in the face of declining player numbers, if that's the case, it really does start to look like looks pretty desperate, and trying to wring out the last few cents that they can before it goes to, because presumably there's some kind of critical mass type issue here as well. And I think that's probably going to be especially true for the players at the top, is once they feel that they're, the level of competition is maybe not as rigorous as it used to be, or that it's just about who is prepared to spend the most, that will, I think, start to hollow out that top tier.
Yeah, and there's things that I think they're doing that are going to turn people off in ways that they may not be seeing. So just in the last few months, they released 2 new challenge events, and this week they just started beta testing a 3rd challenge event. So before, with 5, we could predict a regular rotation, and it's something that you could anticipate. So if you were looking to hopefully score a Guardian Panther, or pick a challenge event hero you'd like, you knew that the cycle was every 5 months. Generally you'd have at least 2 shots every year. If it was the right year, you might get a 3rd shot. But now with 8 of them, the math is going completely the other direction. And my understanding is their goal is to have 10 challenge events, which would mean that there'd only be 2 that maybe in a year you would see twice. And I can see that being an incentive to them as far as players, those players that don't have Guardian Panther, for example, and want to chase her. Maybe they're going to spend heavier in that month when it comes up each year. But I don't know that there's heroes that are that attractive in each of them to drive people to spend on that level consistently. So I assume somewhere in the back end, somebody's been working the math and seeing that people are spending less on the challenge events as the big spenders have gotten the heroes that they want. But I can say as a healthy spender that math is not going to work for me. The things that they're beta testing now for this next challenge event, I don't know that I have any interest in even pursuing that new meta of type of hero. And then the other one, I don't know if you're aware of this Magic Tower. They're creating another tower like the Ninja Tower. And unless they change something significantly in the game to make Hunter's Lodge level weapons available, it's too taxing. I mean, with Mythic Titan twice or every month and Ninja Tower every other month, for those of us that want to compete, it's becoming too resource heavy. Like mathematically, there's just no way to keep up with all these events, and there's no way the 3rd or 2nd tower is going to be adding, to that mix. You're going to have to start deciding which events you care about and which ones you don't.
Yeah, that doesn't sound that different to the situation I'm in. I already feel as though I'm well tapped out in terms of the time I'm prepared to spend in the game. So I do already have to, choose my events. And so Ninja Tower, because my main constraint in terms of player development is being hero constrained, the Ninja Tower is not attractive hardly at all. I realise there's probably a decent number of emblems available, but in terms of pulls and, I basically just do level 1 and be done with it. So that's one place where I can economise on my time at least.
So you don't bother with the tower?
No. So I've never done a pull on the Ninja Portal. So I think the first time the tower came out, I think I did about 10 levels, and then every time since, just the rewards don't stack up. Pretty much all the challenge events, you can get probably about 2 pulls is typical for completion. And the Ninja Tower is not as appealing.
Interesting.
It may not need to be either, though, because it is, as we've seen with you, and there's an aspect with the Ninja Tower that brings out some really intense competition. And not all the content needs to be for everyone. And so I've actually found with what's the recent of the Limit Breaker challenge event. So to actually get the Limit Breakers, I forget what but it was basically the highest recommended team power of any of those quests. And I actually had to think a lot more about doing that final level. And did take a bit of a beating and had to use quite a few items, whereas pretty much all the other content out there in the quests is pretty doable and often doable on autoplay. So yeah, I think that's the Ninja Tower gives an opportunity for that more top tier competition, and it must be, things like the quests. If you've got a really big roster and really high ranked troops, there's really nothing in there that holds any challenge or gives much pause for thought.
Agreed.
It more or less just becomes another form of farming.
Yeah, I would think I'm surprised to hear that you don't go farther into tower, just because the one thing that I would think would be a huge benefit to free to play or cheap to play is the economy of flags. When you're doing the challenge events, it's still costing you real world energy flags, but the Ninja Tower at least gives you 10 flags every day of the tower flags. And I don't know if this is convincing to you or not, but the last tower was the first time I added it up. Just in completing the tower, I picked up 270 emblems just from the floors and the chests every 10 floors. So there is some, to me, there's some real value in those emblems. I mean, obviously competing and being towards the top, there's a pile of emblems that you win at the end, but even just going through the floors, there's a number of emblems to pick up. So you might want to check that out. There's some loot to be grabbed.
Yeah, it's got some appeal, but mostly it's just about the time commitment and the fact that your 10 flags expire on the day.
Yeah,
whereas with a lot of the challenge events, it's not. So you've still got like 45 levels to do in those challenge events, and obviously a lot of them are trivially easy. But even then, I'm not really paying any attention until the weekend, basically. So the Ninja Tower, trying to find time for 10 flags every day,
sure.
Really hasn't happened. I think if there is a Ninja Tower that happens to coincide with, some public holidays, or if I happen to be on leave, then I may well end up going for that one. But mostly it's about the time, and probably the lack of polls is the other factor.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate your time talking about Empires and Puzzles, specifically your war teams and your war effort. So viewers can find you on your YouTube channel, OLO on YouTube. For those that are interested in how you're utilizing your war teams, I was browsing that this morning. I was watching some of your videos on there, and it is interesting to see the chemistry you're building with the roster that you have. So congratulations on that success rate in war. That is something to be very proud of. So congrats on that, and thank you for your time. I appreciate you talking to us today about your setup.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I appreciate what you've done with these series of interviews, but also with your the whole series of videos that you have. It's one of the more cerebral YouTubers out there, and I enjoy that level of analysis. And having got into the trying to record my hits and post them on YouTube, the thing that really surprised me was how difficult it is to have some kind of meaningful commentary and still pay enough attention to what you're doing. It's an interesting combination of
100%.
You're not just in the zone of thinking just about the board. You're also then thinking about what are other people thinking, and having those meta thoughts about how to explain what you're doing to others. But I have learned so much from so many players. There's so many people, contributors in the forum, and other YouTubers out there. I've made so many mistakes over the years, so I'm very happy to try and work with the season one, or predominantly season one roster that I have, and that may be of interest to others out there who are trying to work with what they've got and get the most out of it. Sure. I'm happy to try and pass on some of that knowledge.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing it. So good luck in today's war.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, have a good one.